Welcome back, guys. Thank you for joining me again for another part of our How to Build an Interesting World kind of series. Last time when we were building worlds, we covered what role technology plays in your setting and whether you're advanced, modern day, sci-fi, or medieval. We covered whether or not your world has been explored before, whether it's been mapped out, or if you're the first people to do that, and where this knowledge might have come from if it has been explored. Whether or not there are gods in your world, where they might have come from if they did exist, and what their personalities might be like, whether they're like you or I, or if they're something more like a force, a benevolent feeling. On the nature of magic, does it exist in your world, or do you have another explanation for some of the powers that are in the game? Maybe you don't want to include sorcerers and wizards and other magical things in your campaign, or maybe you want to think of something similar, like the biotic powers in Mass Effect, that function in place of magic without having to draw upon magical energy, sigils, runes, or anything arcane that would tie it back to a fantasy world. Is magic well known if it exists in your world? Is it something that everybody can do, even if they wanted to just light the end of their cigarette with some magical spark from their thumbnail? Or is it really difficult to understand, very rare, you are a special person if you are able to cast magic? Those able to muster enough force to become a wizard, for example, would be feared. They might have to keep their magic secret and under wraps. Maybe magic once was very well used, but after a disastrous event, those who cast magic are even more feared now, and their rarity and scarcity would cause people to flood from miles around to explore what they can do, who they are, and how they might help their lives. Do you have to have magical blood to cast magic? Like in the Harry Potter series, you are in some way born with some sort of genetic ability to be in tune to magic? Or is it something that anyone can learn if they study hard enough? Is there magic in the air and you just have to learn how to use it? So also think about how magic might be treated in this world when it comes to society. You might end up with something like a magocracy, where those who are more talented in magic, if it is prevalent, are the ruling class. Maybe they restrict magic use to those who are seen as less fortunate, poorer, all this kind of stuff. Maybe your story could therefore be about leveling the playing field. Is it a natural phenomenon, more like Full Metal Alchemist, where it's something to be studied and used, maybe in the military as well? Maybe it's a fundamental law of physics. Maybe, if any of you have read the Saga comics, which I would definitely recommend if you get a chance, magic is more seen as savage, something of the old world, because technology exists. Those who have access to this technology don't want to touch anything magical. It's more like choosing an Xbox or a PlayStation. You avidly think one is better than the other, even though they're pretty similar, but you stick your ground. That's the thing you think is best. Anything less is savage or different. Do dragons exist in your world? And if so, do they function as they do in the player's handbook? In which case, the chromatic dragons of different colors, have different alignments, usually leaning towards evil because they are creatures of ultimate destruction. And those metallic dragons that have colors like gold and silver tend to be more good aligned. They might not exist. They might have existed a long time ago and their impact can still be felt. A bit like Game of Thrones. Maybe they've fallen into obscurity. Maybe they are myths and legends. Maybe they are the gods of this world. Are they ancient guardians of something? Do each of their colours represent a different facet of reality, like World of Warcraft, where Alexstrasza, the life binder, breathes life into new species, guards all living things on the plane of Azeroth? Nosdormu might be the dragon responsible for guarding time, and Kaligos, the blue dragon, is responsible for all of magic. Just like in WoW, maybe your dragons can transform from their draconic state into a humanoid one of their choosing. Maybe they started off as one of those species and they ascended to dragonhood. Were they charged with their rights to become a dragon by some other force, in which case who? Or if they exist, are they nothing more than winged, scaly lizards? Purely natural, they're not intelligent at all, they are beasts, like dinosaurs that fly. Are they more like terrifying forces of nature, like those seen in Guild Wars 2, where the awakening of a dragon that represents some kind of destructive force corrupts the entire land, everything that it touches, where Zaitan, the undead dragon, needs to do nothing but consume in order to cause entire continents to rise from the ground, to spawn legions of undead, all of whom he controls. Maybe like the great Kralkatorrik, the crystalline dragon. They're made of shards and fragments of crystalline energy, warping beings that they come into contact with, all becoming their servants over time. In that case, no matter how benevolent their intentions, dragons are a force of destruction on a continental scale. The next thing to think about is how everything got this way. Now you've thought out a little bit more about how you want your world to operate, the things that you know you definitely want to put in there, you have to think about how they got there. Think about the history of this world. What was it like even one generation ago? What changes have happened recently that have caused your people, caused your adventurers to live the lives that they do? This could be massive political upheaval, or it could be just after a time of war, there's now some peace and stability, time enough to explore the world. Maybe there's ruins and remnants of a long battle that has happened throughout the entire world. Maybe some of those tensions still exist. Basically, now is the time to put the lore into your game, how everything got the way it is. You might even want to come up with a cosmogony, something I love to do in specific when it comes to fantasy worlds, which is thinking about literally how this world came to be. A lot of myths and legends, ancient Greek and ancient Roman religions, ancient Egyptian religions, and so on, all have a method, a creation time, an event that caused the reality as we know it to be formed. Was the world birthed as a child would be? Was it thought or felt or dreamed into existence? Did a community sculpt it? Did titans forge it? Or did it form, as ours did, over billions of years of rock cooling and heating due to natural processes of physics and thermodynamics? Are there empires and kingdoms? Are they species specific? Where do all of these creatures live? Do they live in specific zones across the world? Are they all segregated, or do they live together harmoniously? Could you go to one city and find it full of elves and orcs and humans? There's a dragon in the background there, eating the fires that the smith uses on his anvil. Or do humans live in one place, separated from where the dwarves live, from where the elves live? Off in the distance somewhere there are some ogres in a cave. Or are they orders of people who have forged their alliances together? You might not just have human society, you might have the Crimson Hand, or something along those lines, whose banners fly elegantly over their castles. The people inside are oppressed, but they know living in those citadels is safer than the dangerous outside world. With it comes a lot of prejudice and a lot of uncertainty, but at least it's safer than what might be lying for them in the chaos outside the walls of their safe citadels. How did they get there? How did they forge this empire? And what do other people think about it? What do other people from different backgrounds have to say about the status quo? Are we reeling from the last ruler of the most dominant nation or the most dominant organization? Do people remember them fondly? Were they a good leader or a terrible one? Is there now a power vacuum that everybody is trying to gather together and fight each other for? Maybe whereas the last rulers of a few nations were stoic, brave and dependable, their offspring who have taken their lineage by blood, they have taken their crown by blood, are spoilt, arrogant and self-centered, and ruin the lives of those that they encounter every day. Just remember that you don't have to follow a formula when it comes to world building. You can come up with pretty much anything else. If your players aren't interested in playing different personalities themselves, remember that you can always change up all of these rules entirely. Maybe your players are from our world and they get sucked into this one somehow. They get teleported here, they get summoned there, and they have to figure out how magic works and what kind of class they might be and how all of this functions. They might be sucked into a computer game, in which case they are given armor and character avatars and everything like that. Maybe this adventure happens years and years after they've been trapped in this world. It doesn't have to happen straight away. They might have already become accustomed to it, used to it, but make references to our world. The options are utterly limitless. So I'll be sure to revisit this topic again when I next think of something else that'll really help someone build an interesting world, but hopefully this is enough for you to get started with so far. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, I will see you later.